guys, welcome back to the Farmhouse.com. My name's Ashley. So today I wanted to bring you more of a personal type video regarding my rabbitry. I basically documented for a whole year all of my feed costs. So I have it all documented, and I basically anytime I used any pellets, opened a new bag of pellets or hay, I would write down the date of when I did that. My rabbitry is set up with 2 bucks and 3 does, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on my situation with my breeders. If you're new to the channel and you haven't seen any of my previous videos, I'll explain that a little bit to you. So this is the first year that I have ever documented my feed costs at all. I've just bought feed whenever I needed it, and I never paid attention to what it cost to raise these rabbits for an entire year. I am going to give you a number for how much it costs to raise rabbits for the whole year, of course, but I'm also going to break it down and show you how much it costed me in the year of 2024 to raise rabbit meat. And I'm going to do this a little differently than a lot of other homestead channels I've seen. A lot of people will start documenting their feed costs for those kits when the doe is pregnant. So as soon as the doe is pregnant, then they'll start documenting how much it costs to raise those kits all the way to 12 weeks or whenever they process, and they'll go off of those numbers. But I want my numbers to be based off of how much it costs as a whole to raise these rabbits. I have these breeders and I have to feed the breeders, and the only reason why I have the breeders is to produce rabbit meat. So if I don't include the cost in raising those rabbits as well, it doesn't really make sense to me. I need to include the cost of raising the breeders as well, because that's part of the cost of raising the rabbit meat, if that makes any sense. So that is kind of how I'm going to go off of doing this. But I started in January of 2024 documenting all the feed that I go through, and I just ended this December of 2024. And I've compiled all of my information from the year in an Excel file, and I have a blog post about this information. So if you'd like to see a written copy that you can just kind of skim through and see actual numbers, I will have the actual Excel file that I filled out for you to look at and kind of compare. Now, partially through the year, I switched my rabbit pellet feed to something a little different. I was buying Tractor Supply, the Pride brand, I believe it is, the Producer's Pride, and that was decently priced, but I wasn't a big fan of the quality of the feed. I can go into more detail about that later on, maybe in a different video, but I switched the feed to Top Hutch 18, which is what I use now. It's more expensive, but I try to buy it in bulk at Blue Seal. But anyway, so that kind of changed my price point halfway through the year, about when I made that change. So my cost did go up because of that. But a few facts before I get into all the details, a few facts going into this that I learned is I go through about, on average, 50 pounds of rabbit pellets every 12 to 15 days or so. And that really depends on if I have grow out kits in the grow out hutch, or if I just have breeders. Maybe they have some babies that are not weaned from mom yet, which obviously is cheaper because they're not eating pellets. So it really just depends on what rabbits you have at that time, and that kind of alters how much feed you're going through. But on average, I was going through about 12 to 15, or I'm sorry, 50 pounds of feed every 12 to 15 days. Now that would vary, like I said. And then with hay, I would go through one 50-pound bale of hay a month. So I don't go through as much hay as I would like to. I'd really like them to be on more hay, but their hay consumption goes down quite a bit in the summertime because they're eating a lot of fresh greens from the garden, fresh foraged greens, and different things like that. So feed costs do go down a small bit in the summertime, and also depending on whether or not I have my grow out rabbits in a rabbit tractor or not. There's a lot of variables to this, so just keep that in mind. But anyway, so let me get into this information. This is the first year I've ever documented this, and I have to say it's quite eye-opening, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm really not happy with the results, but I'm gonna share them with you anyway because part of me didn't want to share them with you, but at the same time, I want this to be real. I want to be real and honest with my viewers, and I want you to really see the raw, unfiltered, I really just want you to see the raw, unfiltered experience of raising meat rabbits. So I learned a lot from doing this. I already have some ideas of some changes that I'm going to make this year going forward. But like I said, it's a learning experience. Your jaw may drop a little bit, but just keep in mind when you go to other YouTube channels and you watch their videos on meat rabbit cost, it's going to be significantly lower than mine, and that is because of a few different variables, and the main one being that they are not giving you a yearly cost breakdown, and they're not including the cost of raising their breeders. Most of them are only including the cost of the doe at conception, when the doe is pregnant, first gets pregnant, to when the kits are processed. First time doing this, first time documenting this, I really just wanted to see a yearly cost breakdown for my rabbitry. So let's get into this. Now, I always have documented anything going on with my rabbits on my rabbit breeding log. I've made a rabbit breeding log. You can find it on the stonehearthfarmhouse.com, but it looks like this. And you can print one out for yourself on my website, but it's very helpful to document everything, every step, and there's just so much going on, especially if you have multiple does. You just really want to make sure you document dates and you know exactly when to expect your litters, how many may have maybe died, when to process them, when to wean them, all of those things. So I have 3 does currently, Lucky, Thumper, and Darling. Thumper is my oldest, and I will kind of go into her history for the year of 2024. So Thumper, for the year of 2024, I bred her 5 times. I bred her 5 times, and On average, I breed my does 4 times. That is usually 4 times every year. I don't usually get more than that. Sometimes I have to breed them again if I had an unsuccessful kindling, and that was the case with her this year. I bred her beginning in January. I bred her again in March. I bred her in June, and that was a no kindle, and that's because I think Earl's getting kind of old, and I think I'm going to have to retire my buck Earl. So he's been giving the does a lot of really poor litters lately, but that's a different story. So, and then in July, I bred her again. That was successful. She had 7 kits, and then I bred her again in November. And she had multiple kits. I forget how many, but a couple of them died because of the weather or getting out of their nest box in the middle of the night. So she only has 3 currently with her right now. So like I said, typically I breed my does 4 times a year. So altogether, Thumper had 18 kits this year. Kind of disappointing, I'm not gonna lie. And then my second oldest doe is Lucky, probably my favorite just because she's just a wonderful mom. All right, so Lucky was bred 4 times as well. February, April, July, and September. And she gave me a total of, let's see, 17 kits. Kind of sad. But 17 kits. And then Darling is my youngest doe. And Darling is just not working out. If you followed along with me on a few of my other videos where I talk about her, I'm done with Darling. Let's just say that. I'll give you a little bit of a background, kind of a rabbit trail here. No pun intended. I really didn't mean to say that though. So anyway, okay. So I bred her 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times this year. And she had 2 unsuccessful litters. Now, keeping in mind, I just told you that Earl is not doing well. My buck, he's not doing well giving the does good litters. Well, I did not breed her with Earl. I bred her with Arlo, who does give the does decent litters. He's younger. So I bred her in January. She had 3, and she lost 3 because she made a poor nest and didn't pull much fur, and they all died. I bred her again in February. She had 5 kits. 4 of them died because she's a poor mother. I bred her in April. She had 5 kits. Yep, she had 5 kits. 1 of them died, so 4. So that was the first time that I actually got more than 1 kit from her. And then July, she had 4, lost 1. And then this past October, I bred her. She had 5, and they all died. And that was because she didn't take care of them. So I wrote rehome on my rabbit breeding log because I'm just kind of over Darling at this point. I tried 5 times, and it's just not working out. So, and that happens. You know, some does are just bad moms. They're just not, they just can't get it down, and it's normal. You may come across a doe at some point that's like that. You're just gonna have to cut your losses and get a new doe, which is what I'm gonna have to do with this one. And it's tough when this happens because you have a lot of time invested in raising this doe and raising this rabbit up, and then waiting to breed it, finally getting to breed it, and then things don't work out. So disappointing. But anyway, so altogether, in the year of 2024, I raised total 44 meat rabbits, and that's not including my breeders, obviously. But for meat consumption, I raised 44 meat rabbits. I did go back to 2022 and 2023 to see on average what I was raising every year, and the numbers were pretty close. 2022 it was 45 meat rabbits, 2023 it was 43, and then 2024 it was 44. So I'm going to go into the breakdown right now, and I'll show you on screen what this looks like. But for right now, in January, I went through 75 pounds of feed, and that was because I was kind of in the middle of a bag when I started, so it's a little funky for January, but so 75 pounds of feed. I spent a total of around $43. All right, and then February, I went through 100 pounds of feed. Now this is including hay and pellets. I'm combining the two when I say how many pounds of food that I gave them. So 100 pounds of feed, around $43. At the time, I was buying the Producer's Pride. It was $21.99 for a 50-pound bag of rabbit pellets. March, I went through 200 pounds of feed, and I spent roughly $92 that month. And you're gonna see these months different costs, because some of these months I had grow outs that I was raising, some of them I did not. So it really just depended on what I had going on in my rabbitry at that time. But obviously if the cost is higher, I had more rabbits to feed. In April, I went through 150 pounds of feed, and for the month, I spent about $70. May, 200 pounds of feed, $92. Let's see, June, I went through 100 pounds of feed, so $43. So you can see a drop there. So I obviously at the end of May, somewhere between May and June, I processed some meat rabbits. In July, let's see, 200 pounds in July, and I spent $91. And then let's see, August, 200 pounds, $96. And this is when my feed cost went up. So obviously the previous month in July, it was the same 200 pounds, 91, but my cost went up in August because I switched my rabbit feed. And now I buy Blue Seal Top Hutch 18. It's a 50-pound bag, and it's about $26 where I am. The prices may vary where you are. Hopefully they're cheaper for you. But anyway, roughly $26 for that 50-pound bag of that. So August, 200 pounds, around roughly $96 for the month. In September, I went through 150 pounds of feed, spent about $78 that month. October, 150, 70, I should say 79 because I have $78.99, so I'll say 79. November is the same, 150, $79 for the month. December, 150 pounds, $79 for the month. So, are you ready for the totals? Okay, so in total for how many pounds, the pounds is just fun. I know it's not really that important, but for the pounds of feed that I went through 1,825 pounds of feed for the whole year. That includes pellets and hay. Now, a hay bale, let me tell you how much a hay bale was. So I buy the Standley Premium Timothy hay, and that's a 50-pound bale, and it's $26.99. And on average, I went through one of those once a month. A little more, like on my chart here, you'll see in June, I didn't even open a new bag of feed, or not. I didn't even open a new bag of hay because it's June. There's so many things that they can eat in June. I just wasn't using it as much. I was giving them a lot of fresh things. But anyway, and then the total cost that I spent feeding all of my rabbits, this is every single rabbit all year long, breeders, meat rabbits, everything. I spent $893.22 on feed. Now, see, it's a lot. It's a lot. I really should be raising more. Now, that's not always under my control, but like I said, this was a huge learning experience for me, and I already know in my head some things that I'm going to change this year, and I will share those with you. So the cost breakdown, I'll put this away. You can check that out on my blog. I'll leave a link in the description if you'd like to take a closer look at it. So let's see. Okay. So I wrote down some information here. So this year I raised 44 meat rabbits and 5 breeders. On average, when so a live weight at 12 weeks old, which is when I process them, they're 5 pounds. When I process them, the amount of meat that I get from them when it's all said and done and I'm ready to start packaging up meat, I get about 2.5 pounds, sometimes 3. So I left it at 2.5 pounds per rabbit. All right, so as I said, I'm just gonna round my feed cost for the year up to $8.94, just for the sake of speaking in this video. So total feed cost was $8.94. I got 110 pounds of rabbit meat. So I divided $8.94, which is the total yearly cost of me raising all of my rabbits, and I divided that by 110, which is the total pounds of meat that I got from 2024. And I came up with about $8 per pound. All right, so $8 per rabbit. And on average per rabbit, I get about 2.5 pounds from one rabbit. So it costs me about $20 per rabbit that I raise. So each rabbit was $20. So there's some things that I could do differently. And like I said, I do not let, I know this is scary, and I know that doesn't, I'm just being honest with you. I'm just being completely honest. And I'm going to make some changes now that I actually see the numbers. I've never broke down the numbers before, but it's so important to stay organized and to have good breeding stock. I've been trying personally to avoid sourcing other rabbits from other farms. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I've been wanting to breed my own stock, breeding stock, and I have been, but I think going forward, if you've been watching me for a while, you know I have 2 bucks, and I go into why I have 2 bucks, but this year, Earl I'm going to retire Earl. He's not going to be a part of the rabbitry anymore, and I'm just going to stick with having 1 buck. I'm not going to save another one. I'm just going to have 1. It's cheaper. I've always known that it's more expensive to have 2 bucks, obviously, and I did that because I was always worried, well, what if something happens to my buck? And maybe things in the world aren't going well, and then I have to source another buck. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to have a sustainable, reliable, self-sufficient breeding system, and I was just scared that well, what if something happens to my buck? And I didn't like that. So that's why I had 2, but going forward this year, I think I'm just gonna stick with 1. So there's a little bit of a cost, so there's a little bit of a savings. And then I'm gonna get rid of Darling, and I'm gonna replace her with another doe. It's wonderful to be frugal with your money. It's a good thing to be smart. But when we've raised chickens in the past, Cornish crosses are always the most efficient way to raise meat rabbits. But my husband and I, we've never understood it, because for us, the whole reason why we homestead is to get away from the industrial food system and their practices and the things that they do, and all the way from how they raise them to the breeds that they raise. And Cornish cross chickens that's the chicken that you get from McDonald's. It's an industrial, it's a bad chicken. It was bred for that industrialized system, and it's just not, I don't want to eat, I mean, I will, I'm not going to be picky, but if I'm going to raise my own chickens, it's not going to be Cornish crosses. And it's going to be probably more expensive to raise another breed of chicken. And it has been, we've done it. So it's not all about this for us when it comes to raising these animals. Thumper's getting old. She's going on 4 years old this March. So I'm probably going to have to retire her soon. Lucky still has some life in her, so I'm going to keep Lucky around. But Darling, she's out. I'm done with her. I'm not happy with that doe. I mean, I'll go out there after she had a litter, and she just lets them all die. So very frustrating. So yeah, there's a few handful of changes that I'm going to make going forward this year. And we'll see what happens for 2025. So on average, and I know this from experience, rabbits have about 8 kits per litter. If it's a good doe, you should be on average having 8 kits per litter, sometimes more. So I don't know, I'm sure you guys are thinking all kinds of crazy things right now. That's okay. Like I said, I just wanted to be honest with you guys. I wanted to give you the numbers. I've been documenting this for a whole year with plans to make this video and to talk to you guys about this information. I am really mind blown how much it's cost. But those numbers are based off of, like I said, I'm not starting when the doe gets pregnant and documenting how much feed they went through until processing and then breaking down the numbers from there. This is purely a yearly cost breakdown, and including the costs of all of the breeders that I raised for the whole year. So that's worked into that cost. It is still cheaper than buying rabbit meat from a store. I don't know many people that do that, but I know that when my husband and I a few years ago were thinking about raising rabbits, we're like, well, we need to try it before we raise them. And we didn't know anybody who raised them, so we went to the store, the grocery store, and they had rabbit. So we bought it, and it was over $30 for that little rabbit that we tried. But anyway, so it's still cheaper, but definitely not as cost effective as I was hoping. So like I said, it's still worth it, guys, and don't let me scare you away from raising them. They're so much easier than chickens, and this can be a cost-effective process if you're careful and you're thinking about, like I said, there were some things that I did, having 2 bucks instead of 1. I have 3 does instead of 2. A lot of people have just a trio, 1 buck, 2 does. Well, I have $2, 3 does. I don't know. I have some things to think about, but I don't want to scare you away from raising rabbits, and I hope that I'm not doing that by releasing this video. But like I said, I just want to be honest and share with you guys real, raw, what's going on. So hopefully this was helpful to you. Check out my blog post down below. I go into a lot more detail, and it's just better laid out for you visually, for you to take a look at the breakdown and the cost. And you can use my blog post in this video to better your rabbitry. Learn from what I had going on this year. Learn from my log of what I spent. Find different ways to save money, this is what I'm going to do. And especially if you are just starting out, I mean, you can avoid these mistakes just starting out, just by looking at my information and saying, okay, what can I do? What am I going to do differently? And so on. So I hope this video is helpful to you guys. I appreciate every single one of you. Let me know down in the comments what you think. Check out my blog post and let me know what you would like to see in the future regarding videos. So I'll see you guys in the next video, and God bless.